Стартовую цену для каждого актива определяют независимые оценщики на основе всех внутренних и внешних факторов. В стратегических активах планируется в руках государства. Инвестор имеет возможность купить активы в рассрочку до 36 месяцев с учетом индексации. В конкурентных отраслях экономики до 15% ВВП. Фонд приватизирует 215 в период с 2018 по 2020 годы. Основной способ продажи остальных – двухэтапные конкурсы. В них могут участвовать, и которых должно быть подтверждено документально. Треть приватизирует местный бизнес, оставшиеся совместные предприятия. Приватизация даст фонду возможность развивать новые перспективные отрасли, и численности персонала. Второй перечень содержит 167 компаний. Их реализуют способом электронного на основе всех внутренних и внешних факторов. В стратегических активах планируется продать лишь небольшую долю. Финансирование для оплаты активов не ограничены. Инвестор может использовать заемные средства, наличие которых должно быть подтверждено документально. Фонд планирует передать зарубежным покупателям не более трети всех активов. Еще треть приватизирует Фонд Самрук-Казына участвует в комплексном плане приватизации на 2016-2020 год. В конкурентных отраслях экономики до 15% ВВП. Фонд приватизирует 215 активов, разделенных на два перечня. В первый вошли 48 компаний. Крупнейшие из них планируют электронного аукциона через онлайн-площадку Министерства финансов Республики Казахстан. Стартовую цену для каждого актива определяют независимые оценщики Казахстана. Стартовую цену для каждого актива определяют независимые оценщики.
Confirms that privatization is one of the key topics in Kazakhstan at the moment. And it's high on the agenda of the government, it's high on the agenda of Samruk Казына Sovereign Wealth Fund as the largest asset owner. And of course it's also high on the agenda of the local and international business community. My name is Jan-Dirk Weiber, senior partner with Boston Consulting Group. I'll be sort of moderating the session today. Today's session aims to provide you with an update on what has happened since we had a session on privatization a year ago at the same Astana Economic Forum. A lot has happened. We'd also like to hear from the fund on how the strategy and the role of the fund are going to be impacted by privatization and what the next stage of the privatization program will look like. To this purpose, we'll have introductory remarks by Mr. Shukeyev, the CEO of Samruk Казына, and two members of the management board, Mrs. Karl Greval, who will talk about strategy. She's the managing director for strategy and portfolio investment, and Mr. Bey Singaliev, who is the managing director for asset optimization. We'll then have a panel with very distinguished speakers for an expert debate on some of the questions around privatization, with representatives from the fund, some of the portfolio companies, and also international experts. I'll introduce them individually later on. And because I'm sure that there will be also many questions from the audience, we'll make sure to reserve some time towards the end for Q&A. I'd like now to ask Mr. Shukeyev to come forward and give his introductory remarks. I think he should be close already. Otherwise, we improvise as always and start by first introducing the panelists. So we'll have Mr. Altisbayev, who is the CEO of Kataje, the railway company. We'll have Mr. Peter Foster, the CEO of Air Astana, Governor Kelembetov from the AIFC, who will play a major role in the IPO process for the companies earmarked for IPO, Mr. Yesekeyev, the CEO of Kazakh Telecom, Baljeet Kaugreval, who will also speak on behalf of the fund, Mr. Mekan from IFC, who will share some international experience, and Sergei Perepechka, partner with Boston Consulting Group, focused on serving the fund and the government on the privatization. That said, I'd like to invite Mr. Shukeyev to come to the stage for his introductory remarks. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome you to this special panel session devoted to Samruk Kazyna's privatization program. I would like to express my gratitude to Kairat Kelimbetov, Governor of the Astana International Financial Center, who have expressed their support and interest in the privatization initiative of the fund, and would like also thank Dr. Böckner, Chairman of the BCG, Boston Consulting Group, and Muza Mikam, Regional Manager for Central Asia at the International Finance Corporation, for their participation today, as well as our panel experts and at this session. The purpose of our event is to present and discuss Samruk Kazyna's privatization program, its role and significance both to the fund and to the state, and to provide a forum for dialogue for the exchange of international best practices. Today we are working on adapting Samruk Kazyna to be lean and efficient, transforming the fund into a strategic holding company. Our transformation program, which began in 2014, led to business model engineering, optimization of our assets, and value creation in our companies. This now puts us among our top peers in the sovereign wealth funds industry. The privatization program, which we'll soon embark on, captures this opportunity for greater market reform and will create more efficiencies and competitiveness in the economy. The privatization program was launched in early 2016, which comprised a total of 215 assets, and the successful implementation of this program is a strategic priority for the fund. We are not only divesting non-core assets, but for our larger companies, we are also actively carrying out pre-sale preparations, which includes enhancing the operational and financial performance of our companies, as well as upscaling the leadership and talent in our companies. In May of this year, the fund successfully completed the transformation of the corporate center at Samruk Kazyna, which sees us fully transitioning toward our new business model and impacting change. To this end, we have revised 2,000 business processes, set out new KPIs, and introduced a transparent horizontal organizational structure. In addition, we have developed 10 corporate reference models based on global best practices, which cover people, processes, and technology, and which are being actively implemented by all our companies. We have now passed on the transformation baton to our portfolio companies, who are now implementing their own transformation programs and driving strategic outcomes. Today, 6 national companies, including Kazakhstan Temirjoli, Kazmunaygaz, Kazatomprom, Samruк Energy, Kazakhstan Electricity Grid Operating Company, and Kazpost, are implementing over 130 transformation projects between them. We have made great progress so far, and we are now ready for strategic partnerships with major investors. Our aim is to attract great investment, as well as managerial and technological expertise to Kazakhstan. We plan to allocate the funds raised in the privatization program to the development of new projects and industries, and to catalyze new sectors for investment. We will also continue to enhance efforts in further strengthening corporate governance, risk management, and institutional integrity, both internally and across our companies. These areas are important and necessary components of any organization. Samruк Казына is now well positioned to continue executing our mandate by focusing on delivering long-term financial and strategic performance and delivering shareholder value. We look forward to constructive discussion at today's panel, and I am joined by my senior team, Mrs. Baljit Griwal, Samruк Kazyna's Managing Director for Strategy and Portfolio Investment. She will explain how the privatization and transformation programs are strategic to the fund. And Mr. Berik Bisingaliyev, the fund's managing director for assets optimization, will update you on our privatization program and the preparation of our companies for IPO. I wish you a fruitful discussion at this forum and look forward to engaging further. Thank you very much.
Mr. Shukeyev, as already announced, we'd next like to invite Bajit Agrawal to talk about the strategy and the role of the fund going forward.
Hello and good morning. Any country's competitive strategic advantage depends on a well-articulated strategy for growth. And so allow me to share with you some strategic perspectives on Samruk Казына. Since inception in 2008, our role has evolved from one that played a fundamental role as a stabilizer in the domestic economy to a role now that is driven by transformation and market reforms. Our role now largely comprises catalyzing new investments. It includes introducing best practices in our companies, as well as defining new markets to encourage productive sources of development in the economy. The fund is largely driven by three core objectives. The first being the modernization of the national economy, the second being value creation in our portfolio companies, and the third being sustainable development. This is our mission, our objective, and our purpose. And we deliver this mission through the transition in our business model. Through the implementation of the transformation process over the last 2 years, business model re-engineering has occurred at the fund. And this has seen us move out of a passive investor model into a strategic investor model. And what this means is that now we govern our companies based on a strict set of commercial-based KPIs, KPIs that include both financial and non-financial KPIs. We now hold our companies accountable for performance. We introduce best practice, and we continue to monitor performance on a rigorous basis. This has now aligned Samruк Казына's role with our peers, namely Казана in Malaysia and Temasek in Singapore. As you can see, our performance has also improved dramatically on the back of a successful transformation at the fund itself. We closely align our business models to that of Казана and Temasek because we are fundamentally driving nation development and change through our portfolio companies. And so we are, in every sense of the word, a sovereign wealth fund. This year, Samruк Казына has been honored to be able to host the annual International Forum of Sovereign Wealth Funds in September of this year, which will see a gathering of $7.7 trillion in one room. And this will be hosted in Astana by Samruк later this year. More than that, the fund had kicked off a robust transformation over the last 2 years, and this comprised three key areas, the first being people, processes, and technology. What we intentionally did through the transformation process was to disrupt the businesses of our portfolio companies, and this saw us essentially change the leadership team of most of our companies. We looked at talent development, we restructured a lot of the organizational structures of our companies. We introduced new investment management models. We hired best in industry. We brought in new best practices. And this was done during a time of extreme economic hardship domestically for Kazakhstan. And for a lot of our companies, this process was long, hard, and painful. Nevertheless, underscoring the transformation is a strategic theme of reform, because at a fundamental level, the fund believes that markets will reward reform, and this is already translated through the performance of our companies and through the financials of the fund. The ultimate goal of transformation was to increase enterprise value, and we have already seen that through the performance of our companies. And so investors that will invest with us on the next stage of our privatization are not only investing in the current value of our companies, but also in the future value proposition derived from their successful transformation process. We now soon will embark on the next stage of our evolution, which is essentially market reforms through the privatization. The narrative of the privatization is one that seeks to maximize economic impact for us, and that essentially translates to success of privatization, looking something like this: providing benefits to the government, there should be benefits to the asset owners itself, as well as benefits to the consumers. What our companies are doing are no longer local or regional, they are now starting to compete globally. And so when we look at the strategies of some of our companies, we benchmark them against the best in practice. And so for instance, Kazatomprom stands out as a leader when benchmarked against Areva or Rosatom or Cameco. We benchmark KMG to Shell, BP, Chevron, Kaspost to Canadian Post, Australian Post, for KTJ, Deutsche Bahn, for example. And so what we're doing at Samruk Казына is world-class. We're not only creating regional champions, we are creating global champions. And therefore, this privatization process is essential for us to invite new capital, to introduce new technology, and to invite new strategic partners. The role that the fund plays leading towards privatization is pivotal. We have spent the last 1 year really understanding the privatization experiences of other countries. We have aimed to derive value in our companies. We are introducing best practices. We are developing best-in-class processes and technologies within these companies, as well as maintaining a social obligation to the domestic economy. Post-privatization, the role of the fund is magnified, and this is aligned to the similar roles played by Казына and Temasek, where we will continue to strive to drive shareholder value. And this includes setting high-performance benchmarks, including a stable form of dividend returns from our companies, being an incubator of talent and people through our companies, as well as institutionalizing change through a professional investor relationship. And so just to tie that all up together, Samruk Казына offers immense value for investors through the economy of Kazakhstan. We may be a fairly young economy, but ours is one that is vibrant and one that offers great promise. Kazakhstan just turned 25 last year, and so for all intents and purposes, we're still a very young country. But despite that, Kazakhstan is 60% of the GDP of Central Asia. We are the first country in Central Asia to receive an investment grade rating from sovereign rating agencies. We are a member of the WTO, we have a seat at the UN Security Council, and Kazakhstan has also been actively engaging on various levels of bilateral relationship as well as partnership and trade. And so through the next phase of our journey, through privatization, we now intend to catalyze market reform at a more fundamental level. And so we invite you to invest with us, to experience Kazakhstan the way we know it, and we look forward to working together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Baljeet. I think that was a very inspiring story. Let's now zoom in more specifically on the privatization program for Samruk Казына through a speech by Mr. Besengaliev, the Managing Director for Asset Optimization.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining the presentation session organized by Samruk Казына. As you know, we play a big role in the privatization program launched by the government of Kazakhstan. This is a very serious responsibility, and we are working hard to execute the privatization in the most efficient, effective, and transparent way. For efficient communication, I hope you will excuse me if I continue my speech in Russian. В своем выступлении я коротко хотел бы рассказать о программе приватизации, которая, наверное, является самой масштабной, и не только в истории фонда, но и в истории нашей страны. И основная цель, результат этой приватизации – снижение влияния государства, доли госсобственности до уровня, сопоставимого с развитыми странами. Частный сектор должен занять лидирующее положение, он должен быть драйвером будущего экономического роста страны, и фонд будет способствовать достижению этой задачи через обеспечение доступа к инвестированию своей компании. В первую очередь, приватизация повысит конкурентоспособность и эффективность компании фонда. Некоторые компании в нашем портфеле уже имеют партнеров, частных инвесторов, например, лидеров телекоммуникационной отрасли «Казахтелеком» или же национальный авиаперевозчик «Эйр Астана». Но, к сожалению, пока не все наши компании еще имеют частных партнеров. В нашем плане мы намерены привлечь инвесторов практически в каждый из наших активов. При этом привлеченные средства от инвесторов фонд планирует направить на развитие новых проектов и отраслей. Мы работаем над усилением прозрачности, уровня корпоративного управления в компаниях и в рамках предпродажной подготовки усиливать эти позиции. По компаниям, нуждающимся в новых технологиях, ноу-хау, мы стимулируем получение доступа к ним через партнерство, через стратегов. Например, по такому пути пошли такие компании, как Тульпар, Тальго, привлекает испанскую компанию Тальго, или заводы по производству локомотивов и электровозов привлекают технологию General Electric или французская компания Alstom. Применение передовых технологий и материалов в этих предприятиях позволили Казахстану производить самые современные на сегодня электровозы, локомотивы, вагоны, которые пользуются спросом не только в Казахстане, но и в наших соседних государствах. Как вы знаете, по комплексной программе приватизации Казахстана приватизируется порядка 800 компаний, из них четверть, 215 компаний, приходится на группу Фонда Самрук-Қазына. Среди них, вот они делятся на два крупных перечня, первый и второй. Второй – это средние и мелкие, первый перечень – это более крупные, 48 активов. По ним для нас важна глубокая проработка, предпродажная подготовка, нежели чем скорость реализации. В отношении крупнейших активов мы предпочтение отдаем IPO как методу приватизации. Относительно активов, у которых размер недостаточен для IPO, мы используем более приоритетный открытый двухэтапный конкурс для продажи стратегическим инвесторам. Мы готовы к взаимовыгодному сотрудничеству со всеми инвесторами. Всю базовую информацию о наших активах вы можете получить на нашем сайте privatization.sk.kz и на брошюрках, которые сегодня были розданы всем участникам сегодняшнего мероприятия. При реализации программы приватизации фонд основывается на следующих единых для всех принципах. В первую очередь, это сохранение контроля крупных компаниях, которые в основном представлены в сырьевых секторах и владеют определенной стратегически важной инфраструктурой. Компании, которые не в сырьевых секторах, по ним мы готовы продать и контрольный пакет, вплоть до полного пакета. Мы хотим обеспечить представленность миноритарных владельцев в советах директоров, а также, чтобы пакет акций, торгующихся на рынке для размещаемых компаний, обладал достаточной ликвидностью. Сегодня уже идут работы по подготовке активов путем как трансформационных мер, это операционные и финансовые улучшения. Также идет во всех компаниях, где идет представлена приватизацию, там такая рутинная работа, как улучшение отчетности, внутреннее организационное структурирование, проработка мотивационной части и так далее. При этом мы жестко следуем стандартам корпоративного управления. Мы убеждены, что необходимо не просто соблюдать стандарты корпоративного управления, они должны прочно укорениться в сознании руководства и мажоритарных акционеров. Важны независимый совет директоров, прозрачный процесс принятия решений и подотчетность менеджмента совету директоров. Акцент делаем на профессиональный менеджмент. Кандидаты на высшие руководящие должности в компаниях сегодня выбираются из наиболее квалифицированных, рыночно ориентированных специалистов с опытом в соответствующих отраслях. В портфельных компаниях они вот сегодня могут в своих выступлениях подтвердить. Сегодня идет как раз такая работа по оценке должностей, job description, и по отбору специалистов. Практически во всех компаниях созданы комиссии, которые на вакантные должности отбирают людей, и причем при этом приоритетную роль и важную роль имеют независимые директора советов директоров. Касательно наших 9 активов в прямом владении фонда, 6 крупнейших активов мы наметили к приватизации посредством IPO. Мы планируем поэтапный выход в 3 волны. Первая волна планируется национальный авиаперевозчик Air Astana и лидер в урановой отрасли Казатомпром. Во второй очереди у нас стоит энергетический холдинг Самрук Энерго и вертикально интегрированная нефтегазовая компания «Казмунайгаз». И в третью очередь у нас почтовый оператор «Казпочта» и железнодорожный оператор «Казахстан Темиржолы». Еще 3 актива планируется к реализации путем продажи стратегическим инвесторам. Это, в первую очередь, национальный оператор телекоммуникаций в области телекоммуникаций Казахтелеком, майнинговая компания Таукен Самрук и новая растущая локальная авиакомпания Казах-Эйр. Фонд начал осуществлять подготовку к приватизации своих крупнейших активов еще в прошлом году. Работа в компании ведется по таким главным направлениям, как обновление стратегии, уточнение, актуализация периметра активов, трансформация, изменения в регулировании. В обязательном порядке фонд с участием компании проводит встречи с инвесторами для получения предварительного мнения о бизнес-модели, инвестиционной истории, а также узнать, что волнует инвесторов. Такие мероприятия у нас проведены в Нью-Йорке, в Лондоне, для локальных инвесторов в Алмате. Планируем провести в России, в Москве и в Гонконге. Наиболее готовые активы предстоит вывести уже в 2018 году при условии готовности рынков капитала самих компаний. IPO при этом приоритетный способ реализации крупнейших активов, в принципе, по ряду причин. Например, для ОЭСР публичное размещение необходимо для дальнейшего роста. Тогда как для Казатомпрома, мирового лидера по производству урана, IPO позволит повысить эффективность и узнаваемость компании на глобальных рынках. Публичное размещение даст ряд других преимуществ как для самой компании, ее акционеру и для государства. IPO является самым прозрачным способом приватизации, обеспечивающим равный доступ для всех инвесторов. Все это позволяет минимизировать риски государства, а также позволяет нам, как акционерам, найти справедливую стоимость при выводе на IPO. Также одним из важных преимуществ IPO для Казахстана станет развитие фондового рынка капитала за счет обеспечения спроса и развития механизма альтернативного инвестирования, преимущественно для среднего и мелкого бизнеса. В этой связи фонд и Международный финансовый центр Астана подписали меморандум, и у нас есть план мероприятий о совместной деятельности, по которому мы сейчас совместно работаем. Хочу отметить, что конечная дата размещения по нашим компаниям будет зависеть, еще раз говорю, от состояния рынков, от готовности самих компаний и от макроэкономической ситуации, от цен на сырьевые ресурсы. И это окончательное решение будет принято к моменту вывода на IPO. Завершая свою речь, я хотел бы отметить, что на текущий момент приватизационной сессии, на этой сессии фонд хотел бы обменяться опытом и мнениями с экспертным сообществом, с инвесторами, также с общественностью. И те рекомендации, которые мы сегодня получим от вас, мы обязательно учтем в нашей дальнейшей работе. Добро пожаловать.
Two presentations. I think we all have sort of a common understanding now at what privatization means for the strategy, the role of the fund, and also what are the outlines, the principles, and the key priorities in the privatization program that the fund has kicked off. I think it's now time to shift the camera to our panel, and I'd like to start with asking a question to the CEO of the company, who has probably also benefited from this forum, because I assume that many of you came here flying Air Astana, and it's also one of the companies, as Mr. Bissengili have just explained, together with Kazatomprom, that will be in the first wave of IPO. So, Mr. Foster, I mean, being the national carrier, how important is sort of the next step or the next stage of privatization for you, and what are you doing on sort of organizing interaction with potential investors?
Good morning or good afternoon to everybody, and all of you who came in on Air Astana. I hope you had a good flight. and it's nice to see you all, and it's nice to see such a great turnout for the Economic Forum, which is, of course, particularly welcome this year. Of course, it coincides with the start of Expo. And if any of you haven't managed to take the time to go and have a look at Expo and the sites on Expo, I really very much recommend you do. It's a fantastic event that's taking place here in Kazakhstan. As far as Astana's privatization is concerned, I mean, obviously, this is our 15th year. We started operating in 2002. They've been 15 very successful years. Somebody asked me the other day, what are could I define 3 reasons for the success of the company? The strategic location of Astana and Almaty as the absolute midpoint between North Asia, China, Europe on the one hand, and Russia and South Asia, Southeast Asia on the other, and at the heart, of course, of the Central Asian and Caucasus region. So our geographical location has been much discussed and much talked about, but it is absolutely real. The second thing is timing. The airline was established in 2002. You will remember, of course, that was shortly after the terrible events in September 2001, of which really there were no silver linings. But notwithstanding that, the fact is that at the time, setting up an airline in the middle of perhaps the worst crisis that the aviation industry had ever faced, it did mean that infrastructure and assets at that time were very cheap. So it was a good time to start an airline. But thirdly, of course, is execution, and the vision that was laid out very clearly by the 2 founders of the airline, President Nazarbayev, of course, Sir Richard Evans, the chairman of BAE Systems at that time, was absolutely very clear. The airline was to be established with absolutely no compromises with regard to operational reliability and safety, service delivery, and of course cost efficiency, and an absolute emphasis only on profitability. And that's what we've done for the last 15 years. And the results are that we have had, for the most part, an unbroken run of profitability. Notwithstanding, of course, we've come out of 2 very difficult years. Of course, the devaluation of the currency and the depression of the market has hurt us. Airlines are leading indicators of economic activity, and we have suffered from that. But notwithstanding that, we can see very clearly now an upturn. The upturn is being driven by the fact that not only, of course, our commodity prices and oil prices recovered to some extent, not a huge extent, but to some extent, but also, Kazakhstan itself has adapted to the new realities of lower commodity and oil prices, and the economy has adjusted, I think, very effectively over the course of the last 18 months. And finally, we ourselves, we are rotating substantially our business model. In the early years of the company, the airline was very much a point-to-point airline, focusing on travel to, from, and within Kazakhstan. Over the course of the last 4 years, we have been rotating towards a transit network airline model, which means to say that an increasing percentage of our business is actually traveling through Kazakhstan from point A to point C, using Almaty and particularly and increasingly Astana as a transit point. And it's worthwhile just pointing out that whereas 4 years ago we carried virtually 0 international transit passengers, today that figure has risen to 20% of our business, and our model has that growing to just over 1/3 of our business as we look forward. So this really is a great opportunity, and it comes back to the point that I made. That our location is so absolutely key. We are right on the trade routes, and this really has been really the key growth area for us over the last couple of years. It's kept us afloat really for the last couple of years, and as we go forward, it really is the great growth opportunity, and it's beginning to work extremely effectively already in 2017. Of course, we have the great advantage of a brand new airport terminal that will very shortly open. It's partially open already. It will very shortly open at full steam in Astana. You've all seen it when you came in, no doubt, over the last couple of days. And this will increase the capacity from current 4 million to up to close to 10 million. The official capacity is 8.5 million, but airports can always squeeze more capacity out of a facility as we go forward. So we expect that facility to be able to handle 10 million passengers in due course, and that is just a fantastic facility with great transit facilities as well. So, this really is a very key element of what we are building our business plan on, and it's the proposition that we will be taking to the market as we move towards an IPO. I think sort of in general, airlines have got a very checkered history in terms of delivering returns to shareholders. For many, many years, airlines were government-owned prestige projects, flag carriers, as they used to be called. But those days have gone. And I think really you can trace that back to deregulation of, firstly the US in the 1980s and then in the European Union in the 1990s. And what happened was that you had a whole lot of new entrants into the industry who were very focused on return on capital and delivering returns to shareholders, and much less focused on the prestige of having a government-owned national carrier. And of course it's no surprise today that the most successful airlines in the world are fully privatized. And as I mentioned before, we started in 2002 at the point when this new wave of airline investors was coming into the industry and changing it thoroughly towards a proper, genuine business model, and that's where we are today. So we hope to be able to offer a very good proposition to the market when we get there. Now, there's been a lot of talk about privatisation, and I just want to sort of assure you that this really is going ahead, that we're serious about this, and just to give you some idea on how far down the track we are, a lot of discussion is taking place between us, the airline management, and our two shareholders, Samruk Казына and BAE Systems. We're very fortunate to have had two very strong and stable shareholders for all these years. Both shareholders are absolutely on board with this process. They recognise that if we are to realise our long-term plan, which is to grow the airline from 31 aircraft a day to 64 aircraft by 2026, that this expansion cannot be funded by debt alone. You just can't do that these days. That it has to be funded by an increase in the capital base of the company. And it's quite clear that IPO is the logical and coherent move to achieve just that. So the discussions between ourselves and Samruk Казына and BAE Systems are intense. They're regular. They're going ahead well. Of course, at the same time, the Astana International Financial Centre is getting its platform ready and will be ready, we understand, in the latter part of this year. So as we look forward, we are looking to, if you like, build a prospectus of the airline on the 2017 actual results and probably the first half of 2018, which means that the window for the privatisation will open probably in the third quarter of 2018. Now, that doesn't mean to say that it will happen in the third quarter of 2018, but the window will open, as my colleague Berik Bisingeliev said a few minutes ago. It will depend obviously on market conditions and indeed trading conditions at that time, but that's when we anticipate that the window will open, and that's what we're working towards. In terms of the platform, obviously the primary platform will be the new Astana International Financial Centre, which we're all looking forward to, and a concurrent foreign exchange that is likely to be London. Of course, it is the domicile of BAE Systems, and so that's where we are. That's the position. We are very confident that we will be ready by that time, and we look forward to going forward into the next phase of our growth, which promises to be very exciting, not only for Air Astana, but of course for the investors hopefully in our company to come, and indeed for the future of air transportation in Kazakhstan and Central Asia. Thanks very much.
As we are starting our descent toward our final destination, there's beautiful weather, cloudless skies, and a lot of sunshine ahead. So moving from sort of high in the sky, I'd like to ask the next question to the second company, which is in the first wave for IPO, which is Kazatomprom. The CEO of Kazatomprom, Mr. Shumagaliyev. How would you sort of like assess your current readiness for IPO? What are you doing to prepare for IPO coming up?
Thank you. First, I would like to say good morning as well. dear ladies and gentlemen, and using this very good opportunity, I would like to invite you as well on our pavilion at the Expo exhibition, which called Clean Nuclear Energy. I think it's a good opportunity to know more information about nuclear energy, and actually it gives for you, I think, fresh understanding of clean nuclear energy. Regarding question, I would like to share some brief information about preparation work for IPO process. Now we actively working with our team to prepare the company for the IPO process. Firstly, we selected financial advisors which will assist us through the IPO process. Secondly, we identified our legal counsel, which will provide us legal support and prepare prospectus for Kazatomprom. And now we are on the way of identifying our technical consultant, which is gonna to evaluate our reserves, which is gonna to evaluate reserves of company in accordance with JORC standard, which is important for mining company. We clearly understand that this work very important, but is not limited for management. And now the management of company is actively working for improving our efficiency. What I mean, now company focus on diversification of our production, and over later months we have achieved very good results in this direction. I could say that we improved our project, which is involved in enrichment uranium with our Russian partner called Rosatom. We started the construction of our fuel assembly plant with our Chinese partners using French technology. It's distinguished to say, to point it out that for company, it's Kazatomprom very important to focus on our marketing function and to strengthen our marketing function. Now we established our trading company, which will help us to be more close to customers, to our utilities, to be more flexible and to diversify our geography and our sales channels. Certainly, a very important thing is what I would like to mention, that under guidance of Samruk Казына, we are going through the very ambitious transformation program, which includes a lot of activities, such as I mentioned before, diversification of our production, improving our marketing policy, and I would like to continue this list of activities, which includes automating of our business processes, improvement of our corporate governance, improving our investment policy, which are as well very crucial for to be prepared for IPO process. All of these activities will help us to concentrate on our core business, all of our activities to give us, to enhance our efficiency and to ensure readiness for the IPO process. We plan to complete all of these procedures by the end of 2018, and the window will be open for investors, as I mentioned, by the end of next year. Thank you very much.
I think we've now heard from two companies that are sort of in the midst of the IPO preparation process, but not all work is focused on IPO preparation. Also, as we've heard in the speech by Mr. Bisingaliev, there is a huge effort around attracting strategic investors, sometimes for the company as a whole, sometimes also for individual assets. I'd like to ask Mr. Alpisbayev, the CEO of KTG, to comment on the search for strategic investors.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Regarding to our case, development of the Kazakhstan railways, to bring the strategic investors is playing a really significant role. There are two aspects which I would like to bring on your attention. The first one is that creating the new kind of sector of the Kazakh economy is a transportation manufacturing business. So we started from the scratch. Like 8 to 10 years ago, when we end up and need to make the decision over the massive modernization of the rolling stock program. So we're just looking around. On the Soviet, on the CIS region, you can see that this ability can provide Russia and maybe Ukraine, nobody else. On the same time, these two states executed own investment plan and modernization of the railway. So basically, we end up on the kind of line when we need to decide how can we move forward. And decision was made just to bring the kind of best practice, new technology, and also to establish the own production facility in Kazakhstan. So, of course, for us, as for the railway, it is not really core business, but I think that we was just left without any kind of another proposal. So, we look at on our potential partners or investors, and basically we justify the several companies, global companies, which has a good expertise, best technology, and also who can work and to adapt the products to compete on the market. So let me bring some of the practical case. First of all, we're talking about the cooperation with General Electric and Alstom and Talgo. So all these three companies brought in Kazakhstan own technology and to create the facilities, train the people. So by doing this program, first of all, we modernized more than 500 locomotives, more than 500 passenger cars, and it does give some independency from the, I would say that, local suppliers. It helps us. So the next stage is really, we look at that, how can we push this aspect of continued development of this industry without our participation, without our participation. So we discuss with our partners, and basically we discuss about subject of how can we create local basement for the export and to bring the best technology on the CIS market, for example. And I think that this case played good role because the combination of the local expertise and best technology, we could create the product which is really, we can say that is best on the market and which is can compete. Like General Electric locomotives or Alstom electric locomotives, we already started to promote the sales on the region for like recent deal for Alstom, for more than 50 locomotives sent to Azerbaijan. It is also provided by support of the local finance from the Kazakhstan. General Electric sold more than 20 or 30 locomotives on the Central Asia. So we're on the stage when we can live without any kind of problems for the as a railway, and for these guys just to walk forward by yourself. Another big aspect for us, and I think that not only for the transportation industry, but for entire Kazakhstan, we need to say that we were able to negotiate with companies to integrate with local facilities to become as a part of the global supply chain of this company. And right now, with the proud, we can say that a product made in Kazakhstan could be sold entirely the world. Regarding to logistics, is another aspect. You know that Kazakhstan has ambition plan to become as a really transit state on the new Silk Way. And also without bringing the global players on the logistics market, it will be very hard and difficult for us. Specifically when we're talking about the multi-logistics aspect. And for us it's kind of also we are traditional railway, and for us it's new aspect, kind of new field of the on the marketing and execution of the business. So of course we just need to create kind of alliances. And just a recent deal which we finalized as a part of privatization, we attract COSCO shipping line and also Port Lanningan to become our partners in dry port, which is located on the border with China on the free economic zone, Horgos East Gateway. We believe that we're not going to compete because we're promoting the transcontinental routes, and COSCO shipping is really shipping line, but we're telling about the combination and synergy which can help us to improve entire the operation and bring the efficiency. On the same time, we create and improve our product lines, our service lines together with our partners, which we can present on the market. So I think that bringing the aspect of the strategic investors, specifically for the mentioned cases, I think that it's play very good role and bring a lot of positive things, not only for the Kazakh railways, but also for entire the Kazakh economies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think as we've heard in the introductory speeches, Kazakh Telecom is also looking at attracting a strategic investor. And I'd like to ask Mr. Yesekeyev to the question around why are you looking at a strategic investor, and how does this compare maybe to an option of IPO?
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to participate to this session related to privatization of some assets of Samruk Казына. First of all, maybe I give you some topics about my companies. Kazakh Telecom is one of the biggest telecom operators on this market. We cover more than 35% of the all market shares around revenue. Now we have a big mobile operator, which was done together with Tele2, is one of the biggest European telecom mobile operator. Now we are covered in the mobile market more than 27%. If you are starting discussing the project around the privatization, first step was done in 1997 when our company was started privatized on the local stock exchange. And from 1997, in our shareholders, 51% was under the government and 49% was on the market, and around 26% is covered by one big shareholders. Through this opinion, I think we have two ways what we are started to do in privatization. First way is we discussing about IPO. In our case, it's not IPO. It's maybe we can say the SPO, because first IPO was done in 1997. And we are thinking about discussion to do IPO or maybe in international financial centers, because local markup in the local stock exchange is really not related to our book value. It's a problem of the local stock exchange. And the second way what we are thinking to pass on is about to do some strategic investments. What's the opportunity in case of strategic investment? We are thinking they provide for us more competitions. They provide for us more knowledge base, because our industry is very fast growing and sometimes it's faster slowing down. And we are thinking some knowledge from the strategic investor like Orange or maybe BT. They will come to us together with some particular case how to work in the mainstream when the currency is going down and a lot of devaluations. And I think for us and the company which taking revenue in tenge and spending money in the US dollars is very important. Because after last two devaluation, our company was under stress, and now we are feeling well. It's just the second topics around IPO. For us, very important. It's really evaluated our intrinsic value. Now markup in the local market is very less, maybe 2 times than our book value. And in Samruk Казына we discussed how, and we hope it will be done in the near future, maybe on the IFC, some part of our shares to starting to evaluate it in the real market price.
How do you see your level of readiness? I mean, we've heard from the 2 portfolio companies in the first wave that the window will be sort of towards the second half of 2018, maybe end of 2018. Sort of how do you see this process of preparing for AIFC to play a major role in the placement?
Thank you very much, my colleagues, in terms of the kind of philosophical understanding of privatization in Kazakhstan. So we remember like 10 years ago, probably it was more questions to do or not to do. And it's always the discussion, is it really good time to do privatization? And it's never a good time to do such radical stuff, because when the price of oil is about $100 US per barrel, so it's like everyone is quite busy about something, but if the price is low, is also kind of excuse not to do it. And I think that what is the most important, that the government and sovereign wealth fund Samruk Казына is very much keen really to deliver it very ambitious privatization program. And I think this privatization program is kind of a logic consequence of the very comprehensive transformation program which is already delivered by the sovereign wealth fund Samruk Казына. And I think I would like to actually applaud to Mr. Shukeyev and to the team of SK actually who really kind of work very hard in terms of the transformation, first of all, mentality of the people in the companies itself, in a holding itself. So here is again, what is the context of the privatization? It's not because of the budget needs, which is usually happened typically in many countries. It's because of the needs of really improving the corporate governance. So this is very much important. So what we suffered from the recent financial crisis and other types of crisis is lack of corporate governance. And what we need is really kind of to bring best practice to Kazakhstan. That's why we adopted under the leadership of President Nazarbayev this program which is called 100 Steps Towards 5 Institutional Reform. And among them, rule of law and privatization. So I think that this both direction is actually very perfectly married in an ecosystem which we created in Astana International Financial Center. So first of all, we adopted the rules of the English common law, which is quite revolutionary for our part of the world. So there will be access to the independent regulatory authorities, independent financial court, independent arbitration center, which is completely independent from the local regulation authority and local legal legal system from one side. From the other side, it will be new stock exchange. You know that recent development that we created new stock exchange jointly in partnership with NASDAQ, who provided NASDAQ matching agent, and also with Shanghai Stock Exchange, who became a significant shareholder of our stock exchange. So again, the idea to connect the global markets between each other, US market, European market, Asian market, especially the Chinese market. And so what is kind of was not developed before is a capital markets development, liquidity in the market. And we would like, using this upcoming privatization, really relaunch this capital market development, which is crucial for the financial sector here, because this financial sector here is dominated by banking sector, is not always good, and now we see kind of these imbalances. So back to the direct question is our readiness. So we fully fledged the stock exchange would be ready early October this year. So which is, as far as I understood, perfectly in line with the plan of the Air Astana and Kazatomprom. Why is it important for us? Because these two first transactions should be very successful from the perception point of view, both global perception. So the global investors communities should start to kind of to believe that the privatization is serious topic in Kazakhstan, and we are serious to bring real investors, to bring real corporate governance to the country. And I think in these terms is very much important the results and of the privatization. So how it should be is not just people's IPO, which was in the previous period, is real big scale of privatization, and I believe that we can really deliver it. The second type of recognition or perception, let's say, is a social and public perception locally. So we know that is not always when the people are happy about privatization in many countries. And we should be prepared that the perception should be that everyone should be happy because of the kind of the greater performance, because this company belongs to Samruk Казына, should be really global, and because of the everyone is prepared to the social consequences. And I know that Mr. Shukeyev is working hardly about this kind of social impact of the privatization, and this is very much important. So you see that we kind of between two threats, and we should deliver it in the best way. Again, we are now in very good shape in terms of our stock exchange. So we have a very good team over there. We have very good partners. We are finalizing work in terms of the post-trade clearing and settlement system. We are finalizing work with to choosing custodian bank, and very soon we will announce it. Back to the entire ecosystem, full-fledged, the preparation will be ready based on the physical infrastructure of the expo site, January 1st, 2018. You know that in order to deliver it with the President Nazarbayev did amendments to the Constitution this year on March. The Parliament adopted the special constitutional law which allows us work in the principle of English common law. And I believe that will be real recognition of the reform processes in Kazakhstan, and privatization will contribute a lot to improving the efficiency of the economy, decreasing the role of the government or quasi-government sector in the economy, and really kind of emphasizing the role of private sector in Kazakhstan, and improving the channels of bringing FDI to our country. Thank you very much.
And things like that, so learning from international experience. Mr. Muazzam Mekan, Regional Manager for Central Asia at IFC International Finance Corporation. You've been witness.
Gone through 3 or 4 rounds of privatizations already on this matter. To start with, I think it's interesting that we are talking about privatizations in 2017. This is something people did in the 1980s and 1990s. I was asked to find some experts on privatization to work with the government here, and we couldn't find one in the World Bank Group because they have kind of disappeared, fulfilled their role. But it also has a positive aspect to it, that when you come late, you can learn from the experiences from the others as well. And I can see that Ambassador Brown is sitting here, and her country, UK, started out the privatization back in '73 in similar kind of circumstances to kickstart the economy. But certainly the UK was not the first one. I think we normally credit UK with this one, but the Germans did it in 1921 and then Volkswagen back in 1965 or so forth. So the process has been going on for a long period of time. State ownership is an anomaly. It's the natural state of the affair is the private venture and the private initiative. And I think if you look back 100 years ago how the infrastructure was built, it was pretty much done by the private sector. And then because of the abuses, the government started taking it over in the 40s and the 50s, and then we're going through the second round of privatization since then. What have we learned from this thing? I think, I'm not being facetious when I say that Kazakhstan can learn from its own experience on this thing, and Russia, where the privatizations have not been done properly, and privatization around the world actually has become a dirty word. To the extent the UK even changed it, they call it PFI. They no longer call it privatization any longer, but essentially it's the same thing. And what Mr. Klimbetov mentioned, I think it's really important, which is the perception, or how do you sell it to the people. Privatization is a political process at the end of the day. You need to make sure that it's as much of a technical process as it is a political process, because a lot of people are going to be affected through the process. The labor is going to be affected by the process. The consumers are going to be affected by this particular process, and certainly the government, the owner, is going to be affected by the process as well. So I think balancing the interests of all of them, I think, is essential. One more thing is that you start with the objective, why are you privatizing? I mean, clearly, that's the starting point. Is it just the ownership shift from the government to the private sector which is important? Or we are really looking for the efficiencies of the companies to improve the performance of the companies in a competitive environment? So I hope it is the second. Because the first one, the economists will tell you, is doesn't create a value. It's putting money from one pocket to another as an economy as a whole. But if you're looking to improve the efficiencies of the companies, I think then you have to look at widely, more broadly. The economic environment in the country affects the deregulation. It probably is more important, or liberalization of the sector is even more important than sometimes the ownership change. So one has to look at this thing, and that particularly is true with industries which we would consider to be regulated. So when it comes to electricity, whether distribution business, even transport, regulated industry, these things become really important, because I can create a lot of value to my companies by keeping the tariffs high, but is that desirable? When you privatize, what do you do with the labor? Because most of the government companies tend to have overstaffing. So what do you do with the labor? I think this is a political issue, and it is also important because if you don't do it correctly, then it can stop the whole privatization process. And I have seen countries which have started, they haven't handled some of these political issues, and then the authorities have stopped the privatization program completely, or delayed it at least. So I think so being careful, preparing the transactions carefully is essential. I think that there is tendency to be very fast in these things sometimes, and there is a reason, because you need to build the credibility of the program as well. You go to the investors year after year after year, but investors want to see transactions happening. So the speed is important, but getting it right is even more important. So one of the things you may want to ask yourselves, or this is something which we have learned from other countries, is who are the investors coming to the privatization program? Are we getting the right investors involved? Are there desirable investors? If you are essentially saying we're not getting competition, we are getting the same kind of people, then there's absolutely something wrong with the process. And I think this needs to be fixed. If we don't really want to create oligarchs, I mean, that's not the purpose of the privatization program, or concentrate investments in certain hands. That's not the purpose. So I think having the purpose clearly stated up front, communicate it to the population, and then deliver on it, I think those are the lessons which we have learned around the world.
Well, thanks very much. I think these were very, very debate around exactly this question of like speed versus, I would say, preparedness. Before we get there, Sergei Perepechka, partner at Boston Consulting Group, you've been working with the fund and also with the government over the past year in sort of setting up the privatization office. So what are the learnings of, I would almost say, this first year that we also should take into account going forward?
Note that Karatny March was saying about what is the right time of privatization. This is the most often question probably that we get from the audience. Is this the right time to do that? And my always answering, do you think what is the right time? Looking at the audience today and looking at how full is the room today, I think I get the answer to that question. So this is the third international event that Fund is running in communicating to potential investors about what is privatization, about what sort of assets are being put on sale, what sort of terms and conditions will be put in place only this year, and this will continue. And we're very glad to see the high number of interested people in this audience. So another thing I would like to say is that if you are an investor, if you kind of look at the state privatization program, what are the basics you are looking for? There are usually three simple things. One thing is openness, second thing is transparency, and the third thing is state support, because this is like the state-related assets we're talking about. And I can give a reflection of what is working well, I believe, with that privatization program, and also continue with the things we still keep in mind and which we'll need to keep on reminding ourselves in driving this program forward. And actually those points will be very much in common with what Mozam just said. So openness, transparency, and state support. So in terms of openness, every investor can go to the website of Samruk Казына. There is a special dedicated web page, and there is information in English and Russian language available to everybody who wants to look at the assets. You can look up at the site right now, and you can get the basic information there. If you become more interested, then there will be data rooms more and more opened. There is a gradual process of opening data rooms for those investors who are thinking seriously about the investment opportunities. The Investors' Day, it's important always to keep continuous communication. This year started with the roundtable in New York under the leadership of Mr. Kostovich. Then we had an investor at the Investor Day at the Lagos Stock Exchange earlier in April. And then also, not forgetting the local investors, also the Investment Day in Almaty. Why? Because actually the target composition of investors that the fund is looking for is ideal. In ideal way will be like 1/3 of each group. 1/3 of local investors, 1/3 of international investors, and 1/3 of the joint ventures between first and the second ones. So this is in terms of transparency. There is regular reporting for the government, taking on at least a month. On a monthly basis, there is a report coming out to the government which becomes available to everybody. Transparency is about competitive biddings. So normally the programs of this kind can tendency to fail if there is an unhappy investor saying that don't see why that it was fair decision. So most of the companies are going through the small companies electronic auctions. The largest companies are going through the two-stage tenders, and those tenders are announced after the state commissions is taking the decision about the form. And the largest companies will go through the IPO, which is normally the most fair and transparent process of floating their large businesses. So that's transparency and state support. Some of you may know that all decisions about the way the privatization of company goes is going to go through the State Commission of Modernization, chaired by the Prime Minister. And there are several stages that the company is going through before this kind of acceptance at the government is taking place. The company is providing decision, the project office is providing decision, the Ministry of Economy, who is ultimately overlooking the process, is given their opinion. So this is like multi-stage process to make sure that this is run transparent way. Going forward, what sort of things we still need to keep in mind and remind ourselves? Some of them were mentioned before. First, indeed, this dilemma with speed versus value. So there is a tight plan. So there is, this program is 5-year plan, of which 3 first years will need to be spent on preparation of the medium-sized companies, and the next 2 years until 2020 for the companies that are going through IPO, which is normally the longest and most complicated process in terms of preparation. So this, but at the same time, being, having in mind always this target, we're always preparing the company and like communicating the decision, always remind us, is it the right time? Because the pre-sale preparation is a crucial step of the process. Investors like a simple story normally, and simple story means that you need to spin off non-core assets and basically sell the essence which is sellable. So speeding up too fast, we're risking to kind of lose the value, and the success of the program will be remembered in 5 and 10 years forever. So it's important, like, if there is a value risk of under realizing the value, our responsibility is to voice that, and the voice is also with speaking with the government. Second thing is that I also agree with the point that privatization is not just cash. It's not just cash that you just get, to transfer the ownership of the state company and then, consider the thing is done. It's not true. So realization, I'll be fast. The privatization program is about institutional reform. So capital markets and being able to see the capital market function in Kazakhstan, also on platform IFC, is important objective. More competition, if you deregulate the section, is the second objective. But also the companies are getting the next life. So for many companies, the IPO was turning point in terms of trajectory of going forward. And I hope the Astana will be first on the list for that, deliver on that story. So those things we keep in mind. And communication is the must for all of us. And as Direktor Subekov mentioned before, so there will be next events coming this year. Announcements will be placed, so you are very welcome to attend those. And if you give any feedback to the way it's going on now, please give it us after this session. Thank you very much.
To the question of timing, the trade-off between speed, value, before we open up for questions from the audience.
I would just say one thing. I think, there are a lot of assets up for sale, 700 plus companies, right? I mean, it's a lot of them. I think you don't have to sell 700 companies. You have to get 1 or 2 or 3 of them right quickly, because I think it's sort of like a lightning rod. You put a few transactions up there, you get the investor interest, and around those investor interests, you'll be able to get more in other transactions as well. So getting the few ones, strategic one right in the beginning is fundamental to getting large investor interest. The question really which comes to my mind is, if you are, of course, you are looking at some local investors also, but if you're looking at international investors, the simple question would be that if you're sitting in Hong Kong or Dubai or London or New York, why Kazakhstan? There must be a reason why you're actually going to come here. And I think first few transactions are going to give further investors the reason to come here. The best thing which can happen is a good article written in Financial Times about the privatization program in Kazakhstan. I think that will bring the investors. So I think that's what we really should be aiming for in the first transactions.
Thank you very much. I think this is very clear. There are some microphones in the room. У нас есть еще время для вопросов из аудитории. Есть микрофоны?
Foster, we had a wonderful flight this morning. You mentioned the transit traffic, and we know that the ecosystem of the airports is very important for that. Do you think that the existing infrastructure in Almaty and Astana allows you to expand transit business between East and West?
Thanks, Sadiq. Any capacity at the moment with the existing terminal infrastructure to increase transit business substantially. But of course, Astana is a totally different story. As I mentioned, the new terminal is just on the point of opening. In fact, it's already semi-open, and yes, that has great facilities for transit and for passenger transit. The facilities are great; they've been well worked out. The international to international facility is extremely good. The international to domestic has been sort of slightly put together sort of post facto, if you like, but it works as well. It's fine. So in answer to your question, yes, I have no doubt whatsoever that in terms of passenger transit, we have a world-class facility now. Of course, you know, you're in the freight business. And we still have quite a lot of work to do on freight transit. We're working obviously very closely with Kazakhstan, Timajol and KZ Logistics over this. In terms of obviously e-freight is absolutely essential that we get that sorted out very quickly. I know we're all working on that. Secondly, of course, there's a question of warehousing facilities at Astana and a sufficient amount of bonded warehouses, which we know is an issue. Now, we hope, again, to be working with Timajoli over this in KZ Logistics for perhaps using some off-site facilities that we could bond in any event, and we have to have a dialogue with customs on that. So there is, I think in terms of passengers, we're well set. In terms of freight, there's work to be done, but we're working on it together with Timajoli and obviously in conjunction with people like yourselves as a city.
У меня вопрос к руководителю КТЖ, господину Албазбаеву. Какие ваши ожидания от инвестиционного сотрудничества с компанией Коска Шиппинг, портом Ленинган по развитию СЭС Харгос Восточные ворота? Спасибо.
В особенности в области логистики, с моей точки зрения, будут играть принципиальную роль. На сегодняшний день уже есть сложившиеся, так сказать, маршруты доставки грузов с Азии в Европу. И, конечно, сейчас те инициативы, которые в первую очередь реализуются у нашего соседа Китая, это One Belt, One Road, и сопряжение, значит, программы Нурлужол, они требуют коммерческого наполнения. Соответственно, значит, привлечение стратег-инвесторов и игроков на наши коридоры будет играть большую роль. Если касательно СЭС Харгос Восточные ворота, то мы сейчас занимаемся вопросами коммерческого наполнения и привлечения инвесторов. Для этого, конечно, на сегодняшний день мы говорим, что у нас полностью создана инфраструктура, создана нормативно-правовая база, которая обеспечивает, значит, работу инвесторов. Сейчас, как первый шаг, были привлечены компании Коска Шиппинг, и мы ждем сейчас дальнейшего наполнения, а именно большие сети, кто занимается, допустим, интернет-торговлей или занимается, значит, вопросами привоза товаров даже на рынок СНГ. Конечно, здесь именно создание точки дистрибуции на Харгосе, оно играет очень важную роль. И здесь правильно спозиционировать и правильно, как говорится, продать это нашим клиентам. И стратег-инвестора, то есть мы думаем, что за Коска Шиппинг пойдут следующие крупные китайские компании, которые заинтересованы в развитии бизнеса здесь. И я думаю, что в ближайшее время мы еще будем говорить и анонсировать какие-то подобные сделки. Спасибо.
Можете, пожалуйста, рассказать о планах компании по IPO, пожалуйста?
Назовем второй или в третьей волне. Здесь очень важно понять, что в принципе в мире существуют различные формы вывода именно железнодорожных компаний на IPO и различные формы. Конечно, в первую очередь нам нужно будет решить непосредственно с государством, с правительством, то есть роль железной дороги как таковой. Не секрет, что на сегодняшний день у нас есть и пассажирские перевозки, и грузовые. Пассажирские перевозки, они у нас являются социально ориентированными. Здесь вопрос нужно решить до конца, правовую модель, значит, именно пассажирского сообщения. То есть с моей точки зрения нужно обеспечивать стопроцентное субсидирование и гарантии на этом вопросе. Касательно, значит, грузового бизнеса, то здесь есть несколько тоже, опять же, моделей, которые существуют в мире. Конечно, с моей точки зрения, более привлекательно будет, если мы будем предлагать вертикально интегрированную структуру, включающую инфраструктурную составляющую и, соответственно, значит, составляющие, связанные с предоставлением подвижного состава. То есть это включая локомотивы и вагоны. Тогда, соответственно, стоимость компании будет намного выше, с моей точки зрения, чем предлагать чисто инфраструктурную компанию, которая у нас является сферой естественной монополии. Опять же, этот аспект, связанный с регуляторной базой, значит, установление инвестиционных тарифов, потребует дополнительной работы как со стороны компании, так и со стороны фонда, с правительством. Спасибо.
There will now be an opportunity to talk to individual representatives of the fund or the portfolio companies. I'd like to thank the speakers and the panelists for their contribution. I think there are a few takeaways. I think one, privatization is not just about the money, it's actually about also transforming the country in terms of governance, in terms of business opportunities, in terms of like attracting local and foreign investors. I think it is very much important to get the timing right, and I think we're very pleased to hear that there is a clear timetable for the IPOs, that the overall program is well managed, and I think most importantly there's sort of an open invitation for investors and business partners to engage with the portfolio companies and with the fund on the topic of privatization. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the forum.
Фонд Самрук-Казына участвует в комплексном президента Республики Казахстан. Его цель – сокращение доли участия государства в конкурентных отраслях экономики до 15% ВВП. Фонд приватизирует 215 активов, разделенных на два перечня. В период с 2018 по 2020 годы. Основной способ продажи остальных – двухэтапные конкурсы. Способом электронного аукциона через онлайн-площадку Министерства финансов Республики Казахстан. Стартовую цену для каждого актива определяют независимые оценщики на основе всех внутренних. Министерства финансов Республики Казахстан. Стартовую цену для каждого актива определяют независимые оценщики на основе всех